Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with atbbq.com, and this is easy smoked beef short ribs. The two questions that I get asked a lot, one is, what should I smoke if I'm just getting started? And the other is, what's one of your favorite barbecue meats? Now the answer to both is often beef short ribs. They're just incredibly tasty. They're very meaty, they're very fatty. They're also very hard to screw up, which is great. If you're starting out smoking, beef short ribs, pork butt, that's where I would put you. But even for someone that's been smoking for years, there's still something about the beef short ribs that's just incredibly tasty. You don't want to give it up. Now, before we get to the beef ribs themselves, I want to introduce you to the smoker that we're cooking on today. We're going to be cooking on the Yoder Smoker's Loaded Wichita, and this is an offset style smoker. So that means firebox off to the side. That's where your heat's produced, carries the smoke through the cooking chamber. It's all about airflow and controlling your fire. Now, this takes a little bit more work, but for people who are really passionate about barbecue, this is a really fun way to cook. If you want to save yourself the headache and you've got a pellet grill at home, make this even easier and cook it on your pellet grill. So we're going to start off with some lump charcoal for our coal base. Just fill up a chimney with some good-sized chunks of lump. Throw a little fire starter underneath and let this get started. Now we'll add splits of wood to the top of this during the cooking process, but this will give us a nice heat base. So we're going to be cooking with oak wood today. Some of these splits are a little bigger than what we need, so just going to break these down a little bit. That's going to burn quicker, but this is a dense wood, so it's going to burn hot anyways. A large piece of wood like that's going to take a long time to burn through and maybe not give off the best smoke. So I'm gonna make sure that we have these in a good size for burning and putting off clean smoke. I've been using this wood splitter for quite a while, and it's one of my favorite tools on the patio. So we finally actually brought it in. You can pick it up at atbbq.com now. Now for the beef short ribs themselves, what we have here is Creekstone Farms Prime Chuck beef short rib, which means it comes from the chuck end. And what you're gonna find, whether it's chuck or plate, is that you've got the bones on the bottom. Most of your meat is sitting right on top there. You've got this great marbling, which is what makes these so hard to screw up. As far as this top side, this is what we're worried about seasoning. This is what we're worried about trimming if you're doing any of that, which you really don't have to. If we're keeping it simple, you don't have to trim it. Now, if you see some spots that have some really hard fat like this that's not really doing much for you anyway, sure, go ahead and trim that off. But for the most part, you can leave that fat on top, and it's really just a preference thing. Do you want to have a little fat sitting on top of your meat, or do you not? Because you also can trim these all the way down. Thanks to their intramuscular fat, there's plenty of fat running through the center. You don't have to rely on the fat on the outside for a great bite in the middle. Now on the back side, you've got this really thick membrane that's right on top of these bones. There's really no need to take it off. It actually helps everything hold together as one piece if you want it to hold together. Otherwise, you can take the membrane off or even slit on the bones to make those bones pop right out. Now, the thing about this membrane is you're not really going to get any seasoning through to the other side. So I don't even bother seasoning it. So let's talk about seasoning now. We're going to keep it easy today. We're going to do a Texas-style beef rib, which means just salt and pepper, a little bit of mustard for binder, but that's pretty much it. But you can grab your favorite beef rub. Whatever you would use on brisket is going to taste great on short ribs. Now, if you're only going to use 2 ingredients to season your food, they better be good ingredients. So I'm using these Jacobsen Telecherry black peppercorns that I'm going to break down fresh so that they are fresh cracked. A much fresher flavor than something that's already ground when you get it. And I want it to be coarse. It should put some bark and some texture on these short ribs. Now, as far as the ratio goes, I like to do about equal parts by weight of pepper and salt. But as far as actual volume goes, you need more pepper to match the weight of the salt. So it's about 1 part salt to 1.5 parts pepper. And that'll give you that nice Dalmatian salt and pepper look right there. So like I said, we're just gonna hit this with a little bit of mustard for binder. Any mustard will do. Oil would work, hot sauce would work. It's not going to drastically affect the flavor in the end. So we'll make sure we slather the sides as well. Like I said, we're not seasoning the bottom because that seasoning really won't do much down there. And then we're just gonna hit it pretty heavy with our salt and pepper. A nice big thick piece of meat can handle quite a bit of seasoning. I'm not gonna try to like massage it in there, but what sticks, sticks, and that's what stays. We can always touch that up when we're done here if we need to, but we don't want to forget to hit these sides. So our charcoal is hot all the way to the top of the chimney. We're gonna dump that toward the back side of our firebox. We want to kind of concentrate the heat to the back side so we can burn a small hot fire throughout this process. We'll start with a couple splits of oak there. Let me get one more right up here in the front to warm. That way it'll instantly combust when we roll it over on the fire. So we got some good ignition on our oak here. We're gonna go ahead and close this up. You've got your batter up, you've got your on deck right here. In the hole right on top, warming up as well. All right, so our grill has come up to temp. Smoker's sitting at about 275 to 300. We're gonna be cooking in that range today. And we're just gonna go dead center of the rack for now. You can always move it closer to the fire if you wanna get it a little bit warmer. There's also some good color you can put on it next to the stack, but for now we'll start right in the middle. And the great thing about beef short ribs is at this point in the process, you've done most of the work. There's not really anything to do but maintain a consistent temperature. These are gonna cook until they're done, and we don't even need to look at them for another few hours. Guys, we're about 3.5 hours into this smoke, and you can see we're getting a really nice pullback on the bones, especially here on the fireside. Got some great bark happening, some nice color. We're gonna give this a spin so we can share that love with the other half. Just keep feeding this splits and letting it go. Again, maintaining that 275 to 300 degrees. Just keep feeding this thing with our splits of oak wood. It's been a little more than 7 hours now, and we are finally at the finishing stages of our beef short ribs. Come on in here, I wanna show you what we're looking for. Just look at the beautiful bark on that. You can see how it's squishing. When we probe this with our thermometer, we should have very little resistance. And in the deepest parts of this, we're probably gonna wind up around 203, 205 maybe. We're just about hitting that spot. Some of these thinner spots are gonna be a bit higher. So what I wanna do now is get this off the smoker, onto some paper. We're gonna wrap this up and let it rest and finish. Ideally, let that sit in there for about an hour or so to rest. So once this is rested in a fairly warm area, either in your oven or in a cooler, you're gonna be ready to pull this out of here and slice it up. Now you've kind of got options for how you want to break this down for serving. Obviously one really cool presentation is to cut in between the bones because you get this massive serving, but it is a massive serving that probably one person doesn't need. So what you can do is run your knife right underneath here and then cut slices out of here. And that's usually what I prefer to do, but just for the fun of it, let's go ahead and do it both ways today. So there's your big old massive rib. With all that collagen that's rendering away, turning into juice. We're not going to squeeze that too much. And then your other option here, run that knife right along the bone, because again, almost all that meat is on top of the bones. You've got a little bit that you can shred from in between, but for the most part, the meat's sitting on top of the bones. If I pick up any of the membrane, I'll go ahead and take that off before I start slicing, so nobody has to chew on that. And then you can just slice this just like you would brisket. You can hear that bark has stayed intact, which is beautiful. Nothing but salt and pepper flavor on there. Really gonna let that beef shine. Man, some of this stuff, you get into that fatty stuff down at the end, and man, that just wants to melt in your mouth right there. Plop that apart. Let's give it a taste. My goodness. Beautiful beefiness. Great salt crunch on the outside. Just the right amount of kick from the pepper. It's still got some bite to it, not falling apart. I mean, it holds together as a slice, just like you'd see with brisket. But, I mean, it's tender as can be. That's what you're aiming for. And you guys saw how little work we did with this barbecue meat. This right here is going to make you look like a stud and tastes fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out atbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. If you enjoyed the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to atbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.